Copywriting, often seen as the black sheep of the marketing family. You don't really expect it to show results when it comes to your bottom line, do you? And when you finally do come to terms with the impact it can create for your brand, you're usually at a loss for words, ultimately resulting in you choosing to never put pen to paper again. Well, we've been there. We know it's not a pretty sight, but we also know that there is a science to this art. That's exactly what our 8th episode of Just Between You and Me, we are getting down to the lost art of copywriting with none other than Ken Mozkowitz, the founder of Ad Zombies, one of the best copywriters in the world. We will ply him with questions you've always wanted answers to, so we can help you write stunning copy for social media from the ground up. Join us live Wednesday, June 24th, 10 a.m. Pacific, only on nvidio.io/you-and-me. Steve Dotto here. How the heck you doing this fine day? And welcome to Just Between You and Me. I am some kind of thrilled that you folks are joining us today. Let me make myself look a little better. Let's do that. How about that? Little bit of sexy Steve. How's that? Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody to Just Between You and Me. This is the show where we talk to the experts on marketing, and we recognize the fact that almost anytime you listen to a podcast, watch a live stream, you get the story. But the really interesting stuff happens after they're done, when the host and guest sit down and somebody says, just between you and me. That's what the show is about, where we dive into the real deep world of online marketing techniques, building your online presence. And we have Ken Mozkowitz joining us today. Now, I met Ken at Social Media Marketing World. We were sitting down in the green room with the speakers, and I think I had about 2 hours to go before my talk. And I barely made it to my talk. I ran into my talk with about 5 minutes to spare because I was so fascinated having a conversation with Ken. You will see what I mean when Ken joins us in a minute. Now, before he does, though, I would like to give you guys a little bit of a kind of housekeeping. If you're joining us on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, that's fantastic. But if you point your browser to nvidio.io/you-and-me, there you can join in with the rest of the community. That's where we focus all of the chat. Also, all of the replays and all of the resources are shared there. So I encourage you to jump over to to nvidio.io/you-and-me and join into the conversation there. And there, of course, you will also see the replays of our other previous episodes of Just Between You and Me, and which I think this is our 8th episode. Some really great interviews that we have there. And if you could do us a favor, sharing is caring. If you are willing to share this out, let other people know that you're watching this. I guarantee you will make some new friends, or your friends will appreciate the fact that you introduced them to Ken if you haven't yet followed Ken or the Ad Zombies team, because it's a space that we all need a tremendous amount of help in. At least maybe it's just me, but I find copywriting to be one of the most intimidating parts of my online business, and something that I always feel fairly inadequate, and I don't look forward to the chore of writing at all. So for me today, you're going to have to excuse me if I dive down some rabbit holes and get Ken to answer some specific questions where I need help, because I fully intend to do that. So let's get to it. Let's jump right in now, and let's bring on my new best friend, Ken Mozkowitz. Ken Mozkowitz, how the heck are you doing?
Steve, between you and me, did you know something?
What's that?
When I put on a Mac, I sound like James Earl Jones, Darth Vader. Steve, I am your father.
No, you actually don't.
All right, well, whatever. Listen,
judgment.
It does? Well, that's because I'm getting too much carbon dioxide. How are you? Great to see you again.
It is phenomenal to see you as well, sir. Thank you so much for coming on with us and joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's an absolute honor.
Well, just so people know, you live in Arizona, is it where you are?
Yes, I am just 2 degrees away from hell. Average is about 115 degrees here in the summertime, and so we have lots of air conditioning to keep us cool.
So are you a summer now? Is it classified as summer now?
We are middle of the inferno, yes. Yeah. And the summer starts usually around mid-May, and we typically have about 100 days of 100 plus. And then sometimes we'll get a break of a day that dips into the cool 90s, and usually it's about a 6-month span of pain, and then it's a 6-month span of
Oh,
And so
okay.
we live through the pain for the ah.
Okay, well that's good. Well, I know a lot of Canadian snowbirds go to your area. They spend the summer here in Canada, which is far more temperate, and then for the winter they go down there, which sounds like your 6 months of awe. Let's get into copywriting and ads. Now, when we first envisioned this show, because this show, as you know, is brought to you through the benevolence of InVideo, who obviously we create small little. It's a video editor, but it's best at creating interstitial videos, small little videos that are explainer videos. And when I saw what you do with Ad Zombies, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but best served in creating ad copy, small little snippets, just compressed pieces of copy for promotional purposes. I thought, oh my gosh, this is just a marriage made in heaven. And do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love being able to do to create these ads and these messages. For me, it's funny. You talked about how it's uncomfortable for you. And this is so my wheelhouse. Like, I get jazzed especially when it's something challenging. Like, that's fun for me to dip into that well.
Okay. So let's talk about the overall art of copywriting, and then we'll get into the specifics of getting down to some granular things. And I think you've got a unique perspective, because not only are you a copywriter yourself, but you have made it a business to hire the best copywriters you can find. So you must have a really unique perspective on what it takes to be a good copywriter.
I think the number one thing you need to be a good copywriter is to be a storyteller. Copywriters are a dime a dozen, but storytelling is an art. And if you can tell a story in your copy, whether it's an ad, an email, a landing page, a website, if you can tell a story that engages with your audience here, going from here to here is easy. But if there's a disconnect from the start, you can try to sell stuff all day long, but to be a good copywriter, you must be a storyteller.
So what's the biggest mistake that we make? Because like when I sit down and I look, I mean, when you write copy, what's in your mind? What is your goal for that? Like, because I know that at least I have a sense that when I start on the right foot forward, when I have my first thought is right, the copy seems to write itself. But if I don't take the first step in the right direction, I'm lost. I'm like in the woods and I can never find my way out.
Sure. No, and that totally makes sense. For me, Steve, I don't ever write from the perspective of trying to sell someone first. So I like to end people. So I always write from the perspective of my sense of humor. So you'll notice in a lot of the ads for my company, they're peppered with humor. And sometimes that upsets clients because they go, well, wait a second, is that all you're going to do for us? No, that's my flavor, right? My brand. If you look, just look at my office. Okay. It's just the way we live here at Ad Zombies. It's the style that I choose. So for me, I always write my creative to entertain and engage my audience first. Even in that hero ad, which you'll see on our website where you just scrolled by it. Yeah. That hero ad is really, it handles all of the objections. It shares the story of what we do, how we do it, why people want to work with us. But we entertain every time. And for me, I always approach copy not from selling first, but from telling a story that entertains and engages my audience. Because again, doing that makes it a way easier proposition to come when it comes to closing the sale.
And for me, I'm totally on board with you. I think that if you can, first of all, that anything successful is going to come from engagement. 100%. And engagement means you either have to deeply understand their sense of purpose, which ultimately you're going to get to, but that's hard to do. And people aren't ready for that. It's like we're not dating. We're going right to, right. So humor is the one universal thing that makes us all comfortable and makes us feel good about the time we spent. Even if I don't learn anything from you, even if you make me smile, if you make me happy, if you make me chuckle a little bit, I feel that my time with you is well spent.
Humor breaks down walls. Steve, that's the thing I love about it. Like, for example, let's just do this right now. If we do this exercise, I think everyone who watches this will get so much value out of it. I'm just going to throw you a curveball. So play along with me.
Okay.
Now, I want you to act like you're angry. right? And you're stern. Now say something like, why did you not take the trash out last night?
Ken,
right?
The trash is still in the, why didn't you take it out?
All right. Now get really angry, right? Now I want you to smile, and I want you to give me a big smile, and now try to sound angry while smiling.
Ken, why did I can't.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Just a minute. Give me a second. Unless you're Jack Nicholson.
He's just maniacal.
Yes,
right?
that's homicidal. That's a little different.
Right. But it's impossible to be angry when you're smiling. It's impossible. And so that's a state change. So when I can change the state of a viewer, of someone who's scrolling through their news feed, be it Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, name the platform. If I can change their mental state and engage with them in a way that gets them to stop that scroll, right? Let's start with the video, and then they get to the headline, and the headline has one job. It's the ad for the rest of the ad. And so if my headline can do that and get them to read the copy, then I've won. And the only thing I'm asking for in that first engagement is to let me entertain you. Let me make you laugh. Let me change your state so that you leave the experience happy with a smile on your face, because you could have had the crappiest day to that point, and one of our ads hits your feed. Let's say, call it a top of the funnel ad. You've never dealt with my company. You've never heard of us. And there's billions of people around the world who have no idea what we do. And you see that ad, and suddenly you're engaging with it, and you're liking it, or you're sharing it, or you're commenting on it. And that ad has changed your state. So guess what happens? The next time an ad comes into your news feed, and there will be a next time once you've engaged, that ad is going to do the same thing, except this time there's going to be a soft ask.
Yeah.
It's a learn more, right? We want to slowly nurture the audience. We want to build a relationship.
Yeah. Pavlov's
this isn't
dog. Yeah.
right. This isn't a first into bed. This is a first date. Let's go dancing. Let's have dinner. Let's have some wine. We're going to dance and work our way through the relationship, because that's how you build a relationship with clients, not a single transaction customer. And
you spoke to my heart when you talked about the importance of the title, of the very first impression. The people that teach emotional intelligence talk about, like, in 6 seconds, you've decided almost everything about the person that you're communicating with and that you meet in public. And for as a YouTube creator, I spend more time worrying about the title for my video almost than I create the video. I mean, it's terrible. You create a video, I got the video done, and if I don't have the title already, I'll sit there and I'll stare at that video screen. I'll stare at that YouTube screen for hours almost. It seems like hours, at least, just trying to come up with a title that works.
Yeah, and oftentimes we get stuck trying to title or coming up with that headline. And what I do is I like to call it word vomit. And so oftentimes I will sit down and start, years ago, I used to do it like in this, right? I would write all my ideas down.
What was that you just showed me?
It was just my little planner. This is from
it's made out of paper. Paper? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a paper planner. Yeah, that I got this is from Gary V's office. You can see.
Good stuff.
So, anyway, but I use that sometimes. I actually use that just to jot quick notes and stuff, so I don't forget them. But these days, I'm using apps to remember things, to write things. I'm typing them all the time. But when I have ideas for headlines, even if I'm not writing something in the moment, I capture that idea. I capture that headline, because I can always use it for something. But when I start to write, I will do word vomit. And so sometimes I'll write a headline about something that's terrible, on topic, terrible, but then random thoughts pop into my mind, and I write those too. And sometimes they're completely inappropriate, things I would never share with people online, things that should never make it into an ad. But going through that exercise of word vomit allows me to find gems and to touch words that I haven't used in a while, and, killer words and phrases that really have a high impact on your ad copy. So I go through sometimes 15 or 20 headlines just to create my initial headline, but it's a fast process with me because I've been doing it a long time. And I don't fall in love with the words that are in front of me when I write them.
How do you not do that? How do you not do it? Because I always, like, if I write something that I think is really clever, I will hold on to that like a dog with a bone. I just do not pull that away from me.
I think it's just from the years of having clients tell me that my ad sucks, or that I don't like this, or that you should have taken a different creative approach. When I was the head of creative in the media world and I had clients crap on my creative, I would be like, well, write it yourself then. You know, if you don't like it, but creative is the variable, and in terms of an ad success, and everybody's going to have an opinion about it, because creative is a very personal experience, right? If I write an ad and that ad is an engaging, fun ad, but it catches you on a day where you've had an argument with your spouse, or a family member has passed away, your experience of that ad is going to be very different than if you had the best sales day ever and you just found out that you were left a $2 billion inheritance, right? Your emotional experience is going to be different based on what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
And so that's a variable that I have no control over. So therefore, I don't fall in love with the words that I write. I write them and they either work or they don't work. And if they don't work, I change them. Don't be precious. Megan on my team says this all the time. Don't be precious about your words. Yeah, just try things out.
Do you believe in formats or formulas for things like titles? Because a lot of people, for example, will teach you how to build a YouTube title with it's usually a 3-part sequence of the things that need to be in the title. Do you follow that religiously?
Religiously, no, but I've been practicing different things for so many years when it comes to writing. I think I do it instinctively. And so it's not a religion anymore. It's a habit for me. Okay. You have to be able to touch the pain point, right? You have to have a connection to that audience. There are things that you do that are inherently part of what I do naturally, right? And so I think over time you develop the habit. It's muscle memory. It's just like going to the gym, right? You go to the gym and you have a routine and you know what that routine is. And once you get into that habit, you no longer have to go through your checklist of workout exercises. You just do it.
Do you ever get in the point where, as you're writing your copy, it's just one of those days where you're drained and you start to rely on formula instead of what is the real creative side?
I would say yes, we all do that at some point. Yeah. I think on the days where the expression I like to use is phone it in. On the days where you phone it in, that happens. But that doesn't happen too often for me because I get fired up by new things. So I'm always pushing the envelope. I'm always trying new things. And by the way, I really like, in the humor side of things, I like to push the edge of decency, because I want to see the reaction. I want to see how people respond to stuff. I am also not afraid to push the edge and make people uncomfortable with copy, because those ads tend to be the most disruptive. Those are the ones that get attention and start conversations. And when conversations are started about your company, about your business, that's a good thing.
That's where they
engage. So, absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. So we've talked a little bit. Now, do you, once you've got the title in place and you've kind of got that you were talking about the word salad or the word vomit that you do. That's for all of the copy and not just for the title. I'm suspecting, correct? And then you craft the rest.
Yeah. So typically my creative process, and I'm actually pulling something up in a side window. That's why I'm not looking at you. And I apologize for that. I just thought, I should have this handy since we're talking about it. Is for me, I start with video. So years ago, I would do ads and I had an image, right? So I would always start with the words and then find an image to match the words. These days, when I create an ad, I start with a video, but oftentimes I start with a video that has nothing to do with the content of the ad. I want something that's going to just grab people's attention, stop the scroll. Once I've done that, that's when the ad creative comes in. So I look at who is my audience first? Right? Is my audience a cold audience, ice cold? They know nothing about me. That's going to have a completely different tone and feel than an audience that knows something about us. So there's that cold audience that I'm going to write for. That's going to be a different feel. There's the audience that has had a couple of touch points and we're trying to activate them. We're trying to get them to move further into our evil little web, right? And so from that audience perspective, there's going to be answers to objections. There's going to be the why. Do I trust you, right? You start to know us, then you start to trust us. But you really have to like us too. And so all of these different messages are delivered, not necessarily sequentially. It's based on your user experience as you go through our ads, but the messaging is always slightly different. So I start with who is my target audience? And then I start with, then the next thing I do is how do I engage with that audience where they are? And where are they? They're a cold audience. They know nothing about us. I'm going to put my best foot forward. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you smile at the ads. I want to make you have a reaction that you've never had to an ad before. So in our top of the funnel, we have a clown sneaking up on a kid in a farm field. And that ad, and I'm paraphrasing what it says in the ad, but that ad has had millions of views and thousands upon thousands of shares and reactions. And it says, what's the number one word marketers can't find? Or what's the number one word marketers can't find? Help, or struggle to find. Help. Yeah. And it's just letting them know that we're here to help them. That's it. Yeah. But that ad gets so much engagement. I didn't realize people had this inherent fear of clowns. And so people share it. Well, the initial audience that we target are people who are Facebook page admins, LinkedIn page admins, people who run business accounts. Mm-hmm. And so they're typically sharing with others that are like them. And so, sometimes they're going to be business owners. Sometimes they're going to be members of marketing teams. Other times you're just going to be the average Joe, but that's at the top of the funnel. I don't worry about converting them there. I worry about building my audience. It's defining it further down where the messaging shifts, right? Because that's where you have to start answering objections. And so a lot of times, long answer is, I don't get formulaic in the body copy necessarily. I like to tell a story in the body. Yeah.
It's fascinating to me, and it's maybe my own, just not understanding the copywriting industry, how you said, and actually my next question on the list you just led me into it perfectly, because it's how traditional copywriting now, or traditional copywriting differs from writing copy for the social platforms. Mm-hmm. But you've already started to answer that, because you said you used to start with the words of the picture. Right. And now you start with video. Video is the first thing you think about. And that to me just made my ears just perk up, going, wow. I would have thought almost to a certain extent, like video is kind of like the ugly cousin that you weren't quite ready for it, because it's all about the words, because that's your stock in trade. But the story is your stock in trade, is what you're telling me.
Correct. See, the video plays such a critical role in advertising and marketing as a whole. And that's where I feel like there's a lot of people who disrespect video as the medium of attraction. As a copywriter, as a storyteller, I want people to read the story. But if I put up no image, or if I put up a boring image, people are going to scroll by. They're never going to have the opportunity to read what we wrote. Yep. But if I can grab their attention with something that's moving and grabbing and gets their eyes popping, we have an ad that talks about getting more eyeballs to your business. And it's literally a bunch of computer generated eyeballs popping. And that ad gets a lot of eyeballs on it, literally. Yeah. And it's that ad is what stops people from scrolling. And once they stop scrolling, that's where I can start to grab, you've got to grab their attention with a headline. That's the number one thing. Once you grab their attention, you've got to qualify that reader. You've got to get them to understand that this is their pain. You're qualifying them. You're working them through a process in your creative. Once you've done that, you kind of start sucking them into the web. You start sucking them into your funnel, and you just keep moving them down. But there are elements that you need in every piece of copy to do this. One of the biggest things is people want to know what's in it for them. Right? Yep. For us, we take away the pain of copywriting for business owners. And it doesn't matter what the business is, funeral homes, pizza shops, right? We take away the pain of writing, because most business owners suck at writing their own story. And so that's what we do.
And I don't think we should feel bad about that. I always feel a little bit guilty about the fact that I can't tell my own story all that well. But as people point out, we don't see ourselves through everybody else's eyes, which is the way which is the perspective that the story has to be written. So
Correct.
it's natural that we have to turn on. We should talk a little bit about what Ad Zombies is, because I think it's as you remember, when we met at Social Media Marketing World, I just went, "Oh, where have you been my whole life?" Beautiful. This is the sort of thing. So you folks are a copywriting service a la carte. Like, people can sign up for subscription, and based on the amount of copy that they need written, you have a team of copywriters that will churn it out. And so it's like it's the same as subscribing to almost any other service. Have I explained it well?
Correct. Yeah. So we have monthly plans for businesses that have volume of ad needs, a volume of ad needs. And then we have one-off buy as you go. So sometimes we'll have a client that comes in that's a one location business that needs a single ad for an event or a single ad for something that they're doing. And they can go into the store, which is, the buy now button, which takes them to everything. And then they pick what they need. Yep. But we have a lot of clients that are on monthly plans for their businesses, or in the case of the agencies that we serve around the world, they simply pick a plan that fits their agency. And if there isn't one there, then we create an enterprise level plan for them. And we do that for a lot of agencies.
And I have to think that this does a few things, like signing up as subscribing to a plan that is going to create X number of ads for me. Specifically, we're talking ad copy, and we'll talk about other types of copywriting in a moment. Sure. But specifically for your Facebook and your YouTube and your Instagram and your Google ads, signing up for a plan where you now have a copywriter on demand. So it's not like it's a chore for you anymore to do it, but instead it's a service that you're paying for. That's got to really increase the discipline of your clients and help them to do, probably, other than doing good copywriting, the second most important thing, which is consistently reaching out and consistently being out there and promoting their product.
Right. It's hard to run your business when you're working in it. It allows them to work on their business, not in it. And I think that's the real challenge for most small business owners. I mean, the reality is, Steve, when I started this company, I was doing all of the writing, and then we brought on our first copywriter, and then we brought on another person. And then my business partner was like, "We've got to get you out of copywriting because it's not a good use of your time," because I'm the business owner. And so the only copy I work on these days, really rare exceptions where I'll jump into a client project, the only copy I work on these days is the stuff that we do to market this business. That's it. But this is the same model that we're helping our clients accomplish, is get out of working in the trenches and work up here, not down there. You don't want to be in the weeds. You need to be above it, because that's how you run your business. So if you're a small business owner, it makes sense to outsource a lot of things, right? People outsource their dry cleaning. They outsource their housekeeping. They outsource their landscaping. We just give them a way to outsource the most difficult part for most businesses of their business, which is telling their story, whether it's through web copy, emails, or ads.
Okay, so typically speaking, let's walk through what it looks like for a client, so that people can they can project themselves into the model. So, Are the bulk of your clients? Is it fair to say that there's one style of copy that you're doing more? Are you doing more ads? Are you doing more email copy and newsletter copy? What's the biggest bucket that you work in?
I think the biggest bucket, which has been consistent for the last 2 years, the number one thing are Facebook ads. Those are probably,
oh, good.
Yeah, the top of the list. Top of the list is Facebook ads. After that, email sequences. And then all of the other platforms are pretty much equally spread, and all of the other services are equally spread. But Facebook seems to be that big one right now.
Makes total sense, because that's something that you're going to want to constantly be refreshing and constantly putting out there. Whereas if you're writing copy for a website, that's kind of project based as opposed to serial.
That's correct. And so, as platforms shift though, and as attention shifts, you'll start to see new platforms emerge, and those will then at some point become the leader. But right now it's Facebook.
So a client starts out with you probably, and I think myself, what would I do? I'd look at something like the 6th ad per month thing, so I could do something weekly and then have a couple of things for specials.
Correct.
And it costs $270 a month, way cheaper than hiring an a copywriter, and way better than me spending time. If I had to face writing 6 pieces of copy, I think I would have a conniption. That's my dad's word. I don't know if that's a word that's still in the lexicon, but I would have a word. It's a conniption, yeah.
Conniption and mensch, 2 great words.
They are. Is conniption Jewish too, though? I don't know.
I don't know if conniption is Jewish, but I know mensch is.
Yeah, absolutely. So as somebody enters into your system, what are they going to be giving you, and what's the process like to get their ad out on the other side?
Sure. Great question. We're actually asked this question most in our customer chat especially for someone who's never worked with us before. Where do I give you my information? So typically the process is you order what it is you need. Let's say it's a Facebook ad. As soon as you press that order button, at that point, it triggers a whole series of events. Notification of payment goes in. Then you get an automated email that says, here's your creative brief link. Click this link to fill out your creative brief. And then in that brief, we do an interview. It's basically a logic form that will move in a different direction based on how you answer the questions. And because we need to know who you're marketing to, what the landing page is that we're using for reference, for the product, for the service, for the offering, right? Because the writers need to know what we're writing for. And so they walk through the process of answering questions. And it's as if I was sitting here interviewing you. It's just you're being interviewed by this intake form. And this intake form asks who the target audience is, what's the objective? Is this a top of the funnel? Is this for awareness? Is this a conversion ad? And so once you're done with that, and that process usually takes about 5 minutes for people who really just know exactly what they want. Mm-hmm. And you fill it out, you hit send. And once you've done that, you'll get a confirmation email back from the team that says, hey, we've got your order, we've got your copy request, and we're starting the process. And so it's a really 99% automated process where the 1%, all right, it's probably 90%. I'm totally making up numbers. I'm not a mathematician, I'm a storyteller. But it's probably 90% automated. And then the 10% that is human are the writers, and then our quality assurance people, our QA people, our editors. Because once it goes from writers, it gets from the writers, they hit a button, it sends it to the QA people. The QA people check it for grammar, typos, make sure it follows the brief, make sure we're hitting all the things that the client asked for. And once that's done, we submit it back to the client. And that's it. And it's a 3 to 5 day process. And you just go do you, and we take care of all the words. So
I'll challenge you on one thing. You said it's a 5-minute process for submitting the creative brief, if you know what you're talking about. Yes. I dare say that I bet you a very small percentage of your people know what they want as when they order it. That it's over time, yes, but the initial ads that you create as you enroll in the process at the beginning, I bet that's where the biggest effort comes from on the client side.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we've learned over time, and we've evolved that form based on feedback from clients worldwide, is we changed the way we ask certain questions. And certain questions, let's talk about style. Style is a very personal thing. So we now ask the question, do you want us to go, if you like our creative, right, the stuff that we do you want us to go full Ad Zombies creative? Do you want us to stick with the integrity of what your brand is, or do you want us to meet somewhere in the middle, right? So we give people the option of going full their brand, full let us have full creative license and be fun, or somewhere in between.
Or challenge them to grow a little bit.
Correct. And so that seemed to be a big sticking point for a lot of people. And so we've now figured out how to overcome that obstacle in terms of the creative flexing. A lot of people tend to let us just do our thing, which I love and my team loves. And it's freeing when you have the creative license, right?
Once you've built the trust with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you've put a creative person, and I've got a team of creatives, if you put creative people in a box, all they're doing is fighting their way out of the box.
Yeah.
If you let creative people just do what they do best, you get some remarkable stuff. And I've got examples of that too.
Oh, we will share examples in a minute, but I have to say that it sounds to me like this is a process that gets better and better as the client understands what you can do for them more. And every time they enter and every time they hit submit, that they are going to have a clear vision of how to make it work for them over time. And so that probably by the second month, so by the time you've done 5 or 6, it's going to be a far less arduous process and far more rewarding than it was for the very first times. You've got to get people over that hump, don't you?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have a client who's been with us since the early days. He was probably his company was probably within the first 50 clients we had, and he's still with us. And on average month, I think they submit about 100 requests, maybe a little bit more. And the first few weeks, we were working through getting them to understand our process because they were trying to over-engineer our process versus just filling out the brief and seeing what happens. But over time, our writers, because we have a great team of writers, have each gotten to touch different parts of that business. That happens to be an agency client. So they're serving a lot of clients, right? They're serving a very vast audience of businesses that are really diverse. But the experience gets better the more you just let us do our thing and understand that filling out that brief is so critical, because if you don't give us information, or if you give us garbage, what's the expression, Steve? Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And so if you put some thought into it and put the time to give us that information in a brief, you're going to get remarkable copy. And so one of the examples of this is, and I share this story, Mike Fowler is a client of ours who's become a poster child. And by the way, I love the guy. This was a couple of years back. Mike got an ad from us that he absolutely hated. He got it back and within minutes shot back an email to customer service. I hate this, rewrite it. And we have a satisfaction guarantee. We're going to rewrite your ad if you don't like it. And so we rewrote the ad, but our head copywriter said, Mike, do us a favor. Here's the rewritten ad. Could you at least test the ad that we gave you that you didn't like?
Split test.
And to see how it performs. And Mike said, fine, I agree to it. By the way, he didn't like the second ad we did either. So he wrote this in a review. It's on our Facebook page, so you can look for it. Or if you go to the reviews on our website, look for Mike Fowler's name, because I love his story. So he tested the original ad that he wrote, which he was in love with. He tested the ad that we wrote that he hated, and then he tested the rewrite ad. Our rewrite ad performed 4-to-1 over his ad. And the ad that he hated performed 5-to-1 over his ad. And
that's why when we created ourselves, we started this off with. He fell in love with his stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
He fell in love with his copy. And you can't, because you don't know what's going to work for your audience, which is why you test things, right? When our hero ad that I shared with you on our page, we had 7 different thumbnails. And I learned this from Daniel Harmon at Harmon Brothers. 7 different thumbnails. And we
Harmon
tested
Brothers fingerprints are all over that ad.
Thank you. They should be. Daniel Harmon is inspired that ad. Yes. So, I had a great conversation with him at dinner, and we were talking about this. But split testing thumbnails, just that one variable is so powerful, because it tells you what resonates with an audience at scale, not just what you think resonates based on what you like, right? Don't fall in love with your own stuff. Let the market tell you.
It is a classic example of the singers sing and the dancers dance. You let them do it, and if you build the trust, it's gonna benefit. Now, creating ads that are, I think a lot of people get locked in when what we've been talking about static Facebook ads or kind of regular Facebook ads. How do we then transition with working with you into doing video ads, which we've already established are even more powerful? Is it the same process? And how do you go about with all of the creative and all of the different elements then?
Same process. We ask pretty much the same types of questions on the video ad request. The only thing that's different is this time we're going to create a front end video. The biggest challenge that we have, and I don't want to say it's a mistake, because it's not a mistake, because clients know what they want in this space. But the biggest challenge we have is when clients say, I want something that's attention grabbing, but stick to the integrity of my brand. Because attention grabbing and attorneys just don't work, right? You know, it's really hard for somebody in the funeral home industry to have an attention grabbing ad that's brand consistent, or is it? You can find videos that stop the scroll, that grab attention, that make you take a second look. I remember this ad we did. We have an agency client. Their entire agency specializes in marketing for the funeral industry. Mm-hmm. And I remember this ad request came in and they needed a scroll stopping video ad. And so we showed this, and it's a bench, and there's a mom, a woman, and her kids, and she's sobbing with a tissue, and it looks like a church. And she's sitting there, and the ad mentions something about, I don't remember the exact words on it, but I remember that video because the video grabs you so quickly, because you don't normally see that in your scroll, right? In your newsfeed, you see, you know, sparkly things, fast moving objects. You seldom see a woman sitting in a church crying. Yeah. And it's a pattern disrupt. And that's what you're trying to do with these. And so it's the same process. It's just different because we're asking, hey, what type of feel do you want on the video? Do you want us to be super creative? Do you want us to be more conservative, or somewhere in the middle?
Now, you said that most of the business currently starts with Facebook ads, but now are we looking at as a catch-all for social ads, or do you have different criteria or different ways you look at creating a ad for the front end of a YouTube video, or for an Instagram ad, or for Facebook or LinkedIn? Do you approach it differently, and are there strengths and weaknesses in those spaces?
Sure. So the process is almost identical. The variable is the platform we're writing for. And so let me clarify that a little bit. If you're writing a message, an ad for Facebook, it's going to be way more conversational, right? Or it should be, at least way more conversation. Facebook is a community. It's a place that people gather, right? Think about all of the times you share life stories and interesting things that are happening on Facebook. Facebook is about sharing what's going on in life, a global community, right? That same ad on LinkedIn isn't going to work the same way it does on Facebook, because Facebook is a local conversation around a campfire with a beer, and LinkedIn is a conversation around a conference table with a glass of water. It's a different feel. So you want to be more polished, more professional, but not speaking above people's heads. And that's another mistake that a lot of business owners make. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If you are writing ads and your ads read at above a 5th grade reading level on a Fleisch-Kincaid score, you are destroying your conversion, destroying it, because people don't want to be spoken to. They don't want to be talked at. They want to communicate.
And they don't want to feel stupid.
Correct. And if you're using words that you think people should understand, or they should have a better knowledge of the language, wrong approach. You want to speak to them very casually, very comfortably, just like Steve and I are having a conversation right now. So if you're watching this, just think of conversation, not speaking up here, but speaking back and forth. It's a two-way street.
When people are creating ads, do you often get a set where you'll say they'll do one submission that'll say, give me one for Facebook, give me one for Instagram, give me one for LinkedIn, give me one for YouTube? Is that a good approach?
Not a great approach. It's always best to parse them out. And here's why. The way you're going to write for Facebook, or the audience that you're defining on Facebook, is going to be very different than the audience that you're going to attract on LinkedIn. And with LinkedIn, for example, you have the ability to do targeting based on job title, position, company size, right? There are a whole bunch of variables that you cannot target on Facebook. Different ecosystem, different audience. And so if you want to start with your process being the same, here's the ad that we're trying to create, right? But here's the platform. Your audience is going to shift. The tone may shift. Mm-hmm. Comedy.
I would say they give you one objective and ask for 4 separate ads for the objective, one for each platform.
I have not seen any orders come in that way. They will take a brief, and then they will say, okay, now here's another brief. and they separate them out. It also helps keep them organized.
So that then opens the door for me to ask about when I submit, or when someone submits an ad to you, the outcome is important, but have they done their keyword research before? Do they know kind of what their targeting is going to be on the ad before? And is that a big advantage? Or maybe that's one of the questions that you ask in the brief. But is there research in advance a part of that process?
So our job as copywriters is not to do your research. Our job is to write to the specs that you provide.
Yes.
And so we ask, who is your target audience? Who is this ad intended to be delivered to? Because we need to know if pregnant moms are seeing this, or pregnant women are seeing this.
Yeah.
Or guys with enlarged prostates. I don't know why I went there. I just went there. Sorry. That was what popped into my mind. And but you need to know who that target audience is. And so we ask that question. We do not do the research for you.
Yeah.
That's not what this business does, right? We are masters at crafting the message, but research is not our bag. So we do expect that our clients should know who the target audience is. But I will tell you something, and this isn't a masterclass in Facebook ads. We run a lot of Facebook ads, and I'm going to tell you a secret, Steve, that I don't know how many people are aware of this.
Is this just between you and me?
This is just between you and me. Facebook does a hell of a better job at targeting my ideal client than I do.
Yeah.
When your pixel has rich, robust data, the last I looked, our pixel had 50 million pixel events.
Yeah.
When your pixel has robust data, Facebook's algorithm knows who your audience is way better than you can guess, and is going to do a better job of serving your ads to that audience than you can. That is, to me, the most remarkable thing, because a lot of times, just for this business, we won't pick the target audience. We have one definition. They've got to be someone who spends money on advertising. That's the only thing we look for. Everything else falls in play.
I'm just trying to get into my head what the best sequence is. You know, I know I need an ad in this space here. Is my first conversation with my Facebook ads person, because somebody who's going to outsource to you is probably going to outsource to their Facebook ads as well, I imagine. So is the first conversation with them about starting to establish the audience, or is it with you folks, or is it just parallel?
I think it's parallel. Many times you know who your audience is, or who your ideal avatar is, right? If you're in a business and you don't know who your target customer is, I think you got to have a conversation with yourself and sit down and paint that picture. I was just talking to a client that I have a couple of clients that I coach and help them in their businesses, just because of they've watched me grow mine, and I've just kind of naturally evolved into this. And one of the things that we've talked about recently is, who is your ideal client? Who is your ideal customer? And if you don't know that, that's a really dangerous thing, because you need to run everything you create, everything you do, through the filter of that ideal customer. And if you're not doing that, if you can't identify them, you're creating for a group that is so vast, so wide, that you're speaking to no one. And you have to really run it through the filter of that individual, that person that you're trying to attract.
When you discover a new brand or sit down and have a conversation with someone, is there some ideal, your own personal avatar for ad zombies? Is there somebody that you look at and you say, you are the perfect client? This is exactly what I made this business to do.
Yes. So for us, it's for the small business owner who runs a business that, and I can tell you, that does anywhere from $150,000 a year to $100 million a year. By the way, there are small businesses that do that.
Yeah.
And
you're talking team size as opposed to revenue. Yeah.
Right. And so there are small businesses that do that. You know, there could be a solopreneur that's doing 150,000 top line. It could be a 5-person small brand that's doing $100 million.
Yeah.
And, but those are our ideal clients, and clients who spend money on social media advertising, because social media really is the new newspaper. It's the new television. It's the new radio. And it's not so new anymore. There are companies that are just now discovering it. Usually those are the bigger companies who poo-pooed it for so many years. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get into this, but there's so much value and so much real estate in social media that people are naturally gravitating toward it. And so that's who our target audience is. And we don't have a gender assigned to that person. We don't have a race assigned to that person. We just know that they spend money in advertising. This is the size of their business, and they're a small business.
Do you get a sense that your clients who consistently use your service become better with their other communications through the experience, where sharing constantly with you and having your copy coming back to them as like almost like a training?
I think they do. I've had some really interesting conversations with clients over the years, and I think consistently that their communication gets better over time with their clients. And I think all businesses, and let's forget about the copywriting for a second, but I think all businesses can learn and grow by watching what other businesses do. Like, there are businesses that I'm in love with that I follow. And I'll give you an example. There's a brand of women's underwear that I follow called Lively.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they've been really active lately.
Right. I don't follow them because I'm a dude that likes to shop for women's underwear. The brand voice, the brand communication, the way they talk to their audience, there are things that you can learn, right? You follow the breadcrumbs of success.
They have the voice of their avatar. They speak
absolutely
to that voice.
They do. And so I subscribe to a lot of different businesses, and I want to see what they're doing, but there are businesses that I really respect and I learn from them. And every business owner can learn from and grow from what other businesses do.
Oh, that's good. So we spent a lot of time talking about your services, the general space. What about somebody that wants to become a copywriter? How do they, obviously, what skills are you looking for? How do they improve their skills? What do you look for when you go to hire somebody? And if somebody's interested, how do they reach out to you guys?
Well, so on the way bottom of our website, and I think it's on the way bottom of the website. Yes, we have a join us link. Okay. There's a waiting list. We have created the ultimate farm team for copywriters. And so let me explain a little bit how this works. You're on a sales page, so you're gonna have to go way deep.
I'm scrolling. You keep talking. I'll keep scrolling.
Okay. But we have a farm team, just like baseball. I modeled it after baseball, and the way the farm team works is you submit your application, and when we have openings, you'll be notified of the openings. And we get a lot of applications on a daily basis. And then as we have openings, you'll get to test in, right? So nice. just like any coach on a major league team isn't going to just give you put you in the big leagues. You're going to start in the minors. And so you have to test into the minors, and you'll do your first 10 assignments for us offline. And we want to see how you do. And then we rate you. And then from those ratings, the ones that are good enough that make the cut stay in the minor leagues, and they're bench warmers. That's what they are. And they get fed a little bit here and a little bit there, and we help them improve what they do over time. And they get that through feedback from the team as their copy gets edited, and as they'll get little pointers, and they'll say, hey, you can't say this, Facebook doesn't allow that, or this won't work on LinkedIn, right? They learn, they evolve. Yeah. And then as positions open in the major leagues, right, being a writer for the team, they just kind of move up the food chain over time.
Now, as far as the training, there's a lot of online courses teaching copywriting, and some really interesting philosophies, StoryBrand, I'm thinking, and a few others. Do you recommend any of those for somebody that's diving in? I mean, besides your awesome book, Jab Till It Hurts, which really isn't about copywriting, but is about business and is a good read. Do you recommend any other resources for people that want to develop their chops?
So we have our own copywriting course. I'm not going to pimp that. That's not what I'm here to do. There are several books out there that I highly recommend. Breakthrough Advertising is one of them. And what I love about that book, as dated as it is, as sexist as it is, it's just when you read some of the examples in there, you kind of cringe. But the basics, the foundational principle elements of copywriting and storytelling are there. That book is my Bible, and it's a great book to learn from because it will teach you the basic stuff you need in order to become a copywriter. But the number one thing you can do, and I do it today, I do it in different forms, right? Sometimes I use apps, sometimes I'm writing. Practice. I write so much crap that never gets used. I've written more words that I've thrown away than I put into play. And I just made a rhyme. I could be a rapper. But I believe that the best way or the fastest way to become a stronger writer is to practice. And don't worry about your punctuation being perfect. God knows mine isn't, but that's what I have a QA team for. That's what I have editors for. So when I write stuff, we make sure that others have eyeballs on it, because you're going to make mistakes. That's why I use tools like Natural Reader when I'm done writing something. I take my copy and I paste it into naturalreader.com. And by the way, I've got a bunch of tools, Steve, adzombies.com/awesome tools.
Okay.
And if you go there, you can find some of the tools that I use. Natural Reader is one of them. The book that I recommended is one of them. But you hear the mistakes in your copy. And I love that, because when you can hear it, so oftentimes I'll put a piece of copy in there and I will hit the play button and listen back to it with my eyes closed. Because when you do, you hear the mistakes. You hear the mistakes in your written word. And that's really, really powerful. Breakthrough Advertising, that Bible. By the way, the person who owns the rights to that book, that's the cheapest you can get it, is $125 unless you buy it. But I'm telling you, I have multiple copies. It is worth every penny, every single penny.
Oh, and look at the apps. So those are great, great tips. Ken, I could talk to you all day, but I think we better, your shameless plug for your book, which is a good book. It's a good book.
Thank you.
We just did a launch. Speaking of Gary Vaynerchuk's Jab, 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 Right Hook, his kind of seminal marketing book. And I have to admit, I've been very slow to do sales. We've delivered tons of content, but we've very seldom sold anything. But we just launched a membership site, and one of my team members said, "Well, Steve, it just goes to prove that jab, 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 right hook works."
It does. It 100% does. And that's how I built my business. And Gary knows that with conversations he and I have had. And that's why when I wrote the book, I was like, I have it on my desk. I said, Gary, I need your permission. That's the title I want. And he gave me his blessing, which was awesome. But it's jabbing is so powerful. But when you give without any expectation of receiving, right? For those that celebrate Christmas, it's all about giving.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you get back in return. And so that's how I've built my business, is by just giving and adding value and helping people. And what comes from that is remarkable.
It comes through. Ken, I'm going to get you to just hang on for just a second. I'm going to put you down. I'm going to promote everything else that I have to do. But your website is adzombies.com. Check out the book. Thanks so much for the spend of this time. We have appreciated it, and it's been a joy for me.
Thank you, sir.
Don't go away. I'll be right back. Let me fill everybody in on what is happening next week here on the big show. We have, we're going to be talking Facebook ads. It's going to dovetail so nicely with what we've just talked about today. Jordan Platten is going to be joining us next week on Just Between You and Me to talk about the state of the art for Facebook ads. If you put these two Just Between You and Me's together, that could be your marketing campaign for the entire year, and I would suspect that you would do pretty darn well. My thanks to Ken. My thanks to the folks, the good folks at InVideo for hosting us today, and for all of you for participating. Till next week, I'm Steve Dotto. Have fun storming a castle.